Joining me now is one of my favorite historians. His name is Victor Davis Hanson. He is a senior contributor for the Daily Signal. He is also the author of The End of Everything, which comes out in paperback later this year. Historian, senior fellow at the Hoover Institute at Stanford University. Welcome, Victor. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Glenn.
You bet. Have we seen stuff like this before where communists or socialists come in on the backs of democracy and they ride in and people just dismiss them as either clowns or unimportant?
Yeah, I think we have. I think it's a multi-layer. The Democratic Party is in disarray. They have no institutional, as you know, power. Congress, Supreme Court, White House. Their issues are 20, 80, 37, 70. And then they have the street thug group, and that's the people who bomb Teslas or try to kill ICE people, and they're not condemned vehemently or condemned at all by the Democrats. They have the social media mob that ghoulishly goes after the Texas children. They have a whole lot of manifestations, but it's all, I think, it all originates that this time around Donald Trump is not addressing symptoms of the Progressive Project. He's trying to go to the source. So in the first term, he did not go after NPR, PBS, the higher education, K through 12, the whole transgendered movement. And this time he's saying, I think his team is saying, why do these people have so much power when their positions are so unpopular? And the answer that he came up with is, they control the media, the foundations, institutions, academia. And so he's going after that. And the left, I think, is going into hysterics because they feel it's not that he just wants to neuter our power. He wants to go after the source of our power. And that's why they're going.
It's beyond understanding how Democrats don't see this now. I think some Democrats do see it. And there was a story out this week that Democratic lawmakers said they're starting to be afraid of their own base because they're calling for blood. They're saying you're not doing enough. Yes. Maybe you should get shot to bring attention to this, which is truly terrifying. What happened, you just mentioned it with ICE this weekend, and the USAID members that came out now and said, we are training for revolution. They said there were supposedly these sweet aid people, and we said this is color revolution, and one of them said just this week, we know color revolution, and you would have been better just leaving us in the office. Now we have all this time to practice regime change.
Yeah, I think we underestimate the significance of the George Floyd 5 months of rioting. They had arrested 14,000 people. They'd done $2 to $3 billion of damage, 1,500 police officers injured, 35 killed. They torched the courthouse, police precinct, historic, and there was almost 95% of those people were let go. And that sent a message that Donald Trump is in a no-win situation, so these people thought, will cause so much tumult that if he brings out federal troops, he's a Nazi, but if he doesn't, then he looks impotent and can't control the chaos. And that worked, correct, they think, in 2020. And I think they think, well, we're going to do it again before the midterms, and it may work again, and even if it doesn't, there's nothing going to happen to us because nothing happened to the 14,000 people before. They really don't believe there's consequences to that. And I think
we're living in a different time. I think there will be consequences this time. What I'm afraid of, though, is we have a socialist, or I think a communist, even though everyone in the press is bending over backwards to say, oh no, Mamdani he's just a regular old Democrat. The guy is talking about seizing the means of production. He is clearly a communist. Why is this happening? How is this happening? Is New York just off the rails, or is this just a fluke of a primary?
I think it has a lot of causes. The ranked voting and the primary favors candidates like that are better organized without a lot of popular support. I think he only got 6 or 7% of the registered voters. They don't come out in primaries. There's been a vast demographic change. I think New York was about 30% Jewish. It's down to 12. And I think a lot of people thought it would be amusing, at least to put him out on the stage and get all that attention, maybe traditional liberal Democrats. And then, of course, the opposition is trisected, and they can't get together with one candidate. If they could get behind, if you look at what they each got, Silwa and Adams and Cuomo in the primary, they would have won. One candidate, had he got all that, they would have won by 10 points.
Correct.
But I don't know if that's going to happen.
And I don't see them coming together to stop this even now.
I don't either.
So what does it mean if this guy would win in New York? What?
It depends
I've
on
never
whether
really even thought of a communist running a major city in America.
Yeah. I think it depends on to what degree it's just performance art and what degree he starts replacing the police chief, the fire chief, the whole city administration with people like him. If that should happen, and he says it will happen, I think you're going to see $1 trillion in capital leave there and go somewhere like Miami or Charlotte. But I just don't feel that that's going to be a viable financial center. It already is not really viable given the taxation and regulation, but you're going to see a lot of departure. It's kind of sad because we all make fun of New York, but it's the financial capital of the world, and it's in our interest that it be vibrant and free market. And so you're letting a lunatic at the wheel, so to speak, and I don't know. We'll see I think he's going to get elected. I just don't know to what degree he's going to be like a Mayor Johnson in Chicago. Or Mayor Bass in Los Angeles. All of these cities are being incrementally and insidiously destroyed. Absolutely. And here in California, if you go to Los Angeles, as I did recently, it's a destroyed city. It really is. There's no rebuilding in the Palisades. The downtown is uninhabitable. It's kind of like Road Warrior on the freeways. There's no law enforcement.
So, Victor, I think we are looking at a time where, and maybe I'm wrong on this. This is what I guess I hope. Are we looking at a time now where the Democrats didn't realize they were getting into bed? They thought they could control the left, and now they're out of control. And I get the sense that a lot of them are actually too afraid to do anything. They don't know what to do now, and it's gobbling the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think that people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, even Elizabeth Warren, thought they could ride this wave like they did in 2020 to a victory, and now they see that they can't. In 2020, they looked at that motley crew of the Castro, Julian Castro, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, said these people can't win, so we're going to have a coup and put old Joe Biden from Scranton in, and it worked. But I don't think they have that power anymore. I think you're right. AOC, Jasmine Crow, all those newcomers, they understand the media much better than the old guard. They understand internet influencing. They're much more radical, and they feel that this is their time. And it reminds me so much of and people have said that so often about the late 1850s, that we have a lot of Confederatism where we have these states' rights people like Karen Bass, or the mayors feel that federal law no longer applies, that they can 650 nullification cities on immigration. They just ignore Harvard University just told the Supreme Court, we're not going to follow the 2023 ruling on barring affirmative action. And that was what all of them did, Stanford. So you have a open defiance by mayors in blue cities and state officials. And we've got a lot of people who are calling for, I don't know what you would call it, open resistance to ICE, attacking the federal government, saying the federal government has no jurisdiction. I guess I'm sensitive because I'm in California, but it's not good. And we don't have anybody. It's funny you said that about they can't control it, because if you go back to 1855 to 1860, there were states' rights people who felt that they could persuade the federal government, but they couldn't control a lot of the people who wanted to succeed. And 4% of the people owned slaves, and there were a lot of people who said, well, let's just deal with the federal government and table it, or maybe we'll have a buyout. But that was lost when the radical Confederates took over. And I think that's where we are.
I feel like, with the radical communists and honestly, the radical Islamists, they're working together. They're fine with each other right now. They probably both think, well, we'll eat the other one once we get our way. And no one is paying attention to it. The Republicans just think that, oh, well, we won and things are going our way. And they're back to thinking almost like this is going to be that we've just changed course. It's very tenuous. It's very tenuous. And the Republican or the Democrats that I know, they just think that this is insane, that there's some Islamist, radical communist plot that wants to, even though they're saying it on television, nobody seems to want to believe it. So can you give me any time in history or anything that would say this is how you break this spell?
Well, I mean, usually these people have election. In Germany, they elected a fascist one time and there was no more elections. Everybody thought he was a nut. Everybody thought Mussolini had been a communist and he was a socialist and he was a fascist and he was just crazy. But he was I think you can't underestimate some of these people. They're very skilled. They feel they're photogenic, they're charismatic. I don't find them so, but a lot of people find Jasmine Crockett or AOC that way, or even Bernie Sanders. So I think you're right about that. They feel, well, they don't have any of the institutional power, and so they're just frustrated. But they do. They have the media, they have all the universities, they have K through 12, they have the foundations, they have popular culture, I think they have the corporate boardroom, Wall Street, and professional sports. So they have a lot of ways of exercising influence, and the right doesn't seem to see that. They think that, well, we're going to win election. They have another thing that's very ironic. For all the talk of the oligarchs, the big money, I mean, Kamala Harris outspent Donald Trump 2-1. She raised $1 billion in 30 days. They have the money and they have the technology. And that means they can adjust algorithms on Google searches to bring up searches you would never even want or anticipate. They control social media. We saw that in 2020 when they partnered with the FBI. So I would never underestimate these people.
So can I take you quickly just to Europe and look at what's happening in Europe? The same kind of stuff. They're not listening to the people. The elites aren't. They're passing legislation that is against what the people seem to want. Islam is their radical that is on the ground here in America too, but not like it is over in Europe. And I look at that and I think, Victor, there's not a lot of hope for Europe. And then I look at us and I see what's now happening in Mexico with the riots on the street against the gringo, against the American. And then what's on our own streets. And I see civil war and really bad things. Am I too pessimistic?
I think I agree with you. I think what's scary is that when you have political divisions in the United States, in the 60s, they were fragmented all over the country, left, right. But in the 1860s, they were geographical. What's happened now is we have a force multiplier of geography. When you go to a red state, it is a different world now than a blue state. And even the interior of California in the San Joaquin Valley, I commute to Stanford 3 hours from my farm. It's a different world. I'm on my farm today. People seem normal. When I go to the Stanford campus in the Bay Area, it's lunatic. And there's another dimension. The blue state model is not working. Their fertility rate's about 1.4. Red states are about 2.0. The cities are broke. The pension systems can't be saved. They're regulating themselves out of affordable housing. People are fleeing. 4 million people a year flee blue states to red states. And that only intensifies the divide, because most people say, I'm not going to stay here in California and fight to save it. I'm not going to stay in Minnesota to save it. These places are lost. I'm not going to try to. And the result is that they get even more and more crazy because there's no opposition. And the conservative people are live and let live. I mean, politics is not the most important thing. It's their community, their church, their family, their job. But the left, they get up every morning thinking we have to do radical political change, and they go to bed thinking they didn't do enough. It's obsessive and fixated for them. And so, but they're losing, and I think that's a really important point. They're losing the cultural battle, they're losing the political battle, and they're becoming more and more violent and embittered and looking for alternate means to acquire power.
I'm hoping, because, even the Beatles said in their song Revolution, you walk around with pictures of Chairman Mao, nobody's going to listen to you anyhow. Yeah. They are bringing out Chairman Mao. They are doing those things.
Yes,
are we still the people? Is there enough people in the blue states that are not radicalized that will say, no, violence is not how we... If they start violence, will we react as one?
Well, here in California, we lose 300,000 people, and most of the studies show they're conservatives. But that being said, I mean, we overwhelmingly reified Prop 209 that we won't use racial criteria in hiring and admissions. We repealed the $950 free looting law, and we elected an old-fashioned liberal Democrat as a mayor. Got in San Francisco, and San Francisco rejected, as you know, a left-wing, basically a communist, Boudin at first, and then Gascon and Boudin. Mm-hmm. They got rid of both of them. And LA did the same thing with Gascon. So there are people who, I don't know whether they're scared or they're aware of the danger, but they feel that if these people continue, the Democratic Party will be in danger. And and they're in danger. I think a lot of the people on the left who are very affluent, that's the party of affluence, they felt their zip code, the letters after their name, their degrees, their mm-hmm. career, their titles would insulate them from this stuff. We're going to support teachers unions. Our kids are going to go to private school. We live at 70-degree coastal weather. You have 40 cents kilowatt. That kind of stuff. And we have private patrols around, Beverly Hills or Malibu, but defund the police. But I think the revolution is coming for them. And they're scared that all of their money and influence status that will not protect them from these people. And that's a good sign, I think.
So you do believe that it's coming for them. The revolutionaries are coming for them.
Yeah. And they're nihilist. I think another big revolution that we're not talking about is Harvard, Yale, Princeton. All of these prestige places are radically they're losing their prestige blue chip names because for 4 years now they have had no SAT, no comparative ranking of GPAs. They've been letting in people who could not do the work for other grounds than meritocracy. And the employers after 4 years said, if I hire a Yale or Stanford graduate, 80% get A's. They can't compute. They're not analytical. They can't speak well or write well. And they'll go to HR and complain. And it's just endemic in Silicon Valley. People say this. They've gone to the Stanford administration and said, you better do something very quickly because we're not going to give money to you anymore. Most of our kids that are straight A students and perfect SAT do not get into your university because there's 9% white males the last 4 years. And we're not going to put up with it anymore. We're not going to hire your people because they're incompetent. And I just talked to a person in Silicon Valley. He said, give me the choice. I'll hire a Georgia Tech, SMU, Texas A&M electrical engineer, BA, any day over Stanford. Stanford was the best place in the world for that. But if you do this Marxist idea that equity, and you have no merit, after 3 or 4 years, you tarnish the name that they said. Stanford, Harvard, Yale told us for 50 years, we have the toughest curriculum in the world, we have the toughest admissions, and therefore we have the best name because nobody can turn out people as bright, naturally as bright, and who got this rigorous education, and they will excel in law, medicine. And then now all of a sudden they're saying, forget all of that. That was all a lie. We don't believe that anymore. So if they don't believe it, and the results are that it's not true, then the employers say, well, okay, we agree with you. You have other criteria, but we just don't want them because they're incompetent. And that's happening.
How is Trump doing on handling all this, in your opinion?
I think he's doing pretty well. I mean, he doesn't get credit for a lot of things, but there's things that he's done. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of generals the last year. They say, oh, Victor, we're down 50,000, but it's not our fault. People are too fat. They're gang insignia. We're competing against private enterprise. It's not our fault. And you tell them, no, it's DEI and white privilege, white rage, all this stuff and you've alienated the class, the white working class that dies at double their demographic in Iraq and Afghanistan. Oh, no, no, no. And then Trump, all of a sudden, he gets 50,000 people to enlist, and the problem is solved. They said, you have to have comprehensive border. It's hopeless. You can't stop 10,000. And then he solves it. And the same true tariffs. I'm not, excessive tariffs had a history of problems, but not moderate ones, especially if you're the debtor, the deficit country. And all of a sudden, we're told, Wall Street Journal every day, hyperinflation, recession, Wall Street collapse, and it didn't happen. And so what's strange about all the success of these, same thing about the bombing of the nuclear plant, 30,000 dead, World War III, can't get out of it, quagmire, Afghanistan. And I think what's unique about him, he looks at every single problem and he says, what is the American interest and what risk do I have to take in a cost to benefit analysis? If the risk is too great, I won't do it. But if there's a good chance it will help the American people, I'm going to do it no matter what people say. And I don't care about conventional wisdom. And so far, his instincts have been pretty good.
I want to take you one other place. This week, the Epstein thing has come up again. And I think this is a symptom. It's not about Epstein. It's about justice. It's about, are we really looking into all of these things? And is anyone ever going to go to jail for, actual crimes if they are there? So I have no problem looking at these things as individuals and going, nope, there wasn't enough to prosecute or whatever. But this was just handled so poorly, and the president doesn't seem to understand that there are a lot of people who really support him that are like, wait, I'm with you. I just want to know for sure that we are actually doing everything that we can to root out the deep state, and that people, they do go to jail if they did wrong. How do you think he's handled this? What do you think this is really? Because I don't think it's about Epstein. What do you think this is really about?
I think it's pretty clear now that Epstein had no talent other than blackmail, and he was not a financier. He was not a captain of finance at all. What he did is he invited very powerful people to his island or his New York home, filmed them, and then he bribed them, and he shook them down and said, I'm going to be your quote unquote financial advisor, and in exchange for that, I'm not going to release all that stuff. And whether, there were some pretty big people. So why
isn't it being exposed?
Because I think there are people in the establishment. I don't know if they partook in his sick things he was doing, but they feel they have some association with him, and they have they gave him money to invest when there was no reason to hire someone like that. There were much better financial gurus, but he got $500 million somehow from people who were mainstream establishmentarians on the basis that he was going to blackmail them. I think that's how he made his money. And I think those names are numerous. And I think the Trump administration thought, well, we're going to release this, and there's some crazy people that we don't care about are going to be embarrassed. And then all of a sudden, they got a lot of calls and said, why are you doing this? I didn't do this. I went down to the island once. I was on a plane. I didn't touch anybody. And they're saying, and now you're going to release my name and I'll be guilty by, I'm not going to. And I think that's what's happening. There's a lot of people who were very powerful that were giving him money or were trafficking with him. Not necessarily all of them engaging in what he was doing, but just the association with him. And I think they're putting pressure on people. I really do.
Does there come a time when you just have to say, I'm really sorry, but the country needs its credibility. These offices need their credibility. And if you're not guilty, then, I'll be there for you and look at your case and everything else. But, if you're guilty, you're guilty. Yeah. We have to restore the credibility or we don't have a country.
Well, you summed up exactly what Pam Bondi and the FBI and people said to us in February. That's exactly what they said. And then something has changed in their attitude once they got into the data, the material. And the conspiracists say, well, there's officials involved. I don't know if I think it's more maybe the donor class or people across the political spectrum that are very powerful, influential. And some of them were very terrified of Jeffrey Epstein. And that's it. I think you have to start with the premise: how does somebody with no financial experience end up with no proven ability as a master of Wall Street with $500 million? I mean, when you start looking at who was giving him money to invest, these were people who would never give him money and let him invest their money with that background. And yet they did. And the reason they did, I think, is that he showed them pictures or he entrapped them. So something has happened in the administration's attitude from February until now. And I think they would say, well, we went in there and there's a bunch of lurid pictures and we don't want to release that. And he didn't get murdered or anything. We're pretty clear about. So it's kind of ancient history. And I think the people on the right, the conservatives, say, well, just tell us, is there a list and who was on it? Because we'll make our own conjectures. And I think eventually I don't think they can stop it. I think there's too many people that want to know.
Victor, thank you very much. I really appreciate all the work you've done over the years. You are fantastic and a real treasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn, for having me.